Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Nguyen's channel. Today, we delve into two chilling true ghost stories recounted firsthand by those who experienced these paranormal events in the past. In Nguyen's assessment, these narratives are quite captivating, imbued with elements of suspense and horror. I must confess, I myself felt a shiver run down my spine while reading them, particularly as I'm filming this video at 1 a.m., alone in my house. Our first tale unfolds in Buon Me Thuot, while the second takes place in Da Nang. But without further ado, let's embark on our journey into the first story, aptly titled A Night of Terror. But before we begin, if this is your first time visiting Nguyen's channel, please consider subscribing to show your support. And so, our initial narrative revolves around two individuals, a young man named Long and a young woman named Vi. When I first encountered their story, they were referred to by their initials, as is customary in such accounts. However, for the sake of clarity and ease of understanding, I've taken the liberty of assigning them the full names of Long and Vi. Long and Vi were a couple deeply in love. Around mid-September 2012, they hatched a plan for a cross-country motorcycle trip. Unfortunately, as the departure date drew near, a series of unforeseen setbacks arose, forcing them to abandon their ambitious adventure. Long, unwilling to disappoint his beloved, booked bus tickets for a trip to Nha Trang instead. During their sojourn in Nha Trang, everything proceeded smoothly, with no unusual occurrences. The two enjoyed each other's company immensely, reveling in the simple pleasures of their vacation. Their joy was so profound that neither wished to return home. Long, in a moment of spontaneity, suggested to Vi, "Why don't we visit my grandmother's house in Buon Me Thuot?" Vi, still basking in the afterglow of their Nha Trang escapade, readily agreed. Together, they boarded a bus bound for Buon Me Thuot. After several hours on the road, they arrived in Buon Me Thuot around 4 o'clock or 5 p.m. Long's aunt, Di Ut, was there to greet them and escort them to the family home. By this time, Long's grandmother had passed away, and the house was occupied solely by the family of a relative named Bac Nhu, along with Di Ut. The house was an imposing structure, a 3-story edifice with a ground floor consisting of a kitchen and living room. The first floor housed the bedrooms of Bac Nhu and Di Ut. The second floor contained 2 unoccupied bedrooms, while the third floor was dedicated to an ancestral altar and a Buddhist shrine. Upon their arrival, Di Ut instructed Long to lead Vi to the second floor, offering them the choice of either of the vacant rooms. Long ascended the stairs without incident, but as Vi set foot on the second floor, an unsettling sensation washed over her. It was as if she had entered a space devoid of human presence for an extended period, a place where life had become stagnant. The air felt inexplicably cold. Have you ever noticed that when you enter a place that has been unoccupied for a long time, you often experience one of two distinct sensations? The first is an involuntary chill that runs down your spine, a sudden and inexplicable drop in temperature. The second is a persistent feeling of being observed, as if unseen eyes are watching your every move. It's not entirely surprising, is it? After all, if a house is devoid of living occupants, who or what might be residing there? At that moment, Vi felt a profound sense of unease, but she dismissed it as mere fatigue and chose not to share her apprehensions with Long. As Vi reached the top of the stairs, she was confronted with 2 rooms, one on either side of the hallway. She opted to investigate the room on the left first. The room was spacious and well-appointed, complete with amenities such as air conditioning and a television. However, one particular feature sent a shiver down Vi's spine. The bed in the room was eerily reminiscent of those found in hospitals. You know, the kind with a metal frame, wheels, and an unusually high elevation, leaving a disconcertingly empty space beneath. It was, to put it mildly, an unsettling sight. And the bed in this room was an exact replica, its sheets a pale, off-white color that evoked the image of an abandoned, dilapidated hospital. It was a deeply disturbing sight. Overcome with a sense of dread, Vi decided against staying in that room and crossed the hallway to the opposite room. This room was smaller and less lavishly furnished, lacking the amenities of its counterpart. But crucially, It did not contain that ominous hospital bed. In fact, it had no bed at all, only a mattress placed directly on the floor. Vi turned to Long and declared, "I think we should stay in this room. The bed in the other room frightens me." Long, ever the accommodating partner, readily agreed. After all, what did it matter where they slept? With their sleeping arrangements settled, they proceeded to freshen up and change their clothes before venturing out to explore the city. Long and Vi returned to the house around 9 o'clock or 10 p.m. Their plan for the following day was to visit Bandon, a local tourist attraction, and spend the entire day immersed in its sights and sounds. Consequently, they decided to retire early that evening. However, sleep proved elusive. They tossed and turned, unable to find a comfortable position or succumb to slumber. For some reason, neither of them had closed the door to their room. At one point, as they lay there restlessly, Vi nudged Long and whispered, "Long, do you hear that?" Long, who had been lying still, replied, "I don't hear anything." "What do you hear?" "I hear a faint clicking sound, like something tapping or rattling. It's coming from somewhere nearby, and it's quite unnerving," Vi explained. Long, recognizing that Vi was likely experiencing the anxieties that often accompany unfamiliar surroundings, reassured her, "It's nothing to worry about. It's probably just a cat or the sound of a fan. Try to go back to sleep so we can get up early tomorrow and enjoy our day trip." After a while, Vi drifted off to sleep. A short time later, Long followed suit. But something strange happened. Long had only been asleep for about half an hour when he felt a pressure against his side, as if the bed had suddenly become smaller. He opened his eyes and turned to see Vi lying pressed against him, as if seeking comfort or reassurance. The bed was quite spacious, and they had initially positioned themselves on opposite sides, leaving ample room between them. Yet, Vi had somehow migrated across the mattress and was now clinging to Long's side. Long gently nudged her and said, "Vi, could you move over a bit? You're practically pushing me off the bed." Vi responded, "Oh, I thought you were asleep. I heard a strange noise and got scared, so I moved closer to you." "What kind of noise?" Long inquired. "It wasn't like a motor or anything like that. It sounded like a person," Vi whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Long, still groggy with sleep and fatigue, mumbled, "It's probably just my uncle, back new. He snores quite loudly. It's a habit he's had for years." He added, "It's customary in this house to leave the bedroom doors open at night." That night, Vi listened intently and declared it wasn't snoring. She knew her girlfriend was afraid and unsettled by the unfamiliar surroundings. But Long, exhausted from a long day, reassured Vi, urging her to sleep soundly with him beside her, assuring her that her fear would subside. As 1 o'clock approached, a strange sound jolted Long awake. Opening his eyes, he heard something akin to a cat's meow, but upon closer inspection, it resembled the cries of a child. He turned to the window, peered outside, but found no one there. The window offered an unsettling view of a massive tree, its extensive branches swaying ominously in the wind. The interplay of moonlight and shadows created eerie, shifting patterns in the hollows of the tree, a sight that unnerved him. He tried to rationalize it as a figment of a tired imagination, a result of being in an unfamiliar place. While not entirely convinced by tales of the supernatural, Long held a certain respect for the unseen world, acknowledging the power of belief. Facing the window, Long suddenly turned back to lie supine, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. In that moment, he clearly saw a dark figure, the silhouette of a child, swinging from the ceiling fan and staring down at him. Terror seized him, and he nearly screamed. But as he attempted to cry out, a heavy weight pressed down upon him, immobilizing him. He felt an external force manipulating his hands towards his neck, as if to strangle himself. The surrounding scene transformed into a strange, deep, cerulean blue, reminiscent of the depths of a vast ocean. He tried to call out to awaken Vi, but he couldn't. A tightening sensation around his throat felt like a constricting rope. He remained paralyzed, witnessing everything, including the shadowy figure above, yet powerless to act. He began to recite a Buddhist prayer, Nam Moe Di Fat, over and over. Suddenly, his body began to tremble violently, and he felt repeated slaps across his face. He awoke to find Vi beside him, her face streaked with tears, frantically trying to rouse him. She recounted his groans and cries, which sounded like those of a woman, high-pitched and terrifying. Long, realizing what had transpired, asked Vi if his eyes had been open or closed during the episode. She confirmed they had remained closed throughout. A profound fear gripped Long, as he realized he must have been seeing through the eyes of the spectral entity. Despite his terror, he feigned sleep paralysis to avoid alarming Vi further. She retrieved a protective amulet from her purse, placing it between them, but it offered no respite. Within an hour, the possession recurred, and Vi again woke him. Long concluded the amulet only protected Vi, not himself. He lay awake until dawn, his body exhausted. Though typically robust and resilient, he felt drained and feverish, debilitated by the night's events. Downstairs, he found his aunt and another relative, Aunt Hong, who remarked on his pallor and exhaustion. He recounted his experience, though he sensed her disbelief, common among those who dismiss such tales. She questioned the veracity of his vision, but he affirmed it. He then excused himself, stepping outside for a cigarette. Remarkably, upon leaving the house, his strength returned, his mind clear, his body invigorated, as if the illness had never existed. He surmised the house held a heavy negative energy, amplified by the nocturnal encounter, which had depleted his own vital energy. Stepping beyond its threshold, he felt restored. On that day, Vi and Long still decided to visit Bandon as planned. After their outing, around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, they returned home. Throughout the trip, Long didn't mention anything about the previous night's incident. He simply told Vi, "I think I was just experiencing sleep paralysis. Perhaps it was due to sleeping in an unfamiliar place for a long time. And last night, when I arrived at my grandparents' house, I didn't offer incense to the ancestors, so maybe they were reprimanding me. It's nothing to worry about." Long didn't want to make Vi anxious. When they arrived home, they encountered one of their uncles, Uncle Sin, the eldest of the siblings. Upon seeing Long and Vi enter, Uncle Sin called Long over and said, "Long, come sit down here. I have something to discuss with you." As Long sat down, Uncle Sin inquired, "Did you encounter a ghost last night? I just heard your Aunt Hong talking about it this morning." Long admitted that he did, but added, "I think it was just sleep paralysis because I was very tired. It was nothing serious." However, Uncle Sin asserted, "You weren't experiencing sleep paralysis. I'm certain you were possessed by a ghost. This house is haunted." Upon hearing this, Long felt a mix of fear and curiosity. He had thought that he was the only one who had encountered the ghost, but unexpectedly, Uncle Sin knew about it. He then recounted the entire incident from the previous night to his uncle. Uncle Sin revealed, "This house has ghosts, but they aren't the spirits of our family members. You see, there are 2 spirits that people frequently encounter in this house. One is the spirit of a young woman who hanged herself next door, right beside the room where you slept last night. She was 18 years old at the time, and it has been over 20 years since then, but her soul hasn't moved on. She remains in that very room. You're not the first person to encounter her. Back when your grandmother was still alive, I used to sleep with her. Occasionally, at night, I would see a white shadow with shoulder-length hair pacing the hallway. I initially thought it was your mother, but it turned out to be the ghost from next door." Hearing this, Long felt goosebumps all over his body. He realized that the sensation of his neck being constricted and the pain he had felt the previous night wasn't just a feeling of being choked, but the ghost's way of making him experience the pain she endured before her death. "There's a belief about the journey to the afterlife," Uncle Sin continued. "When a soul leaves the body to descend to the underworld, it must pass through 7 gates. Those who die of natural causes, such as old age or illness, are said to have completed their lifespan. However, those who die from accidents or suicide are considered to have died prematurely. These souls must remain in the underworld until their lifespan is complete before they can pass through the 7 gates. Among the souls who died prematurely, the most tormented are those who committed suicide. Suicide is considered a grave sin of filial impiety. Therefore, those who die by suicide must relive the horrifying experience of their death every day at the exact hour they took their lives, year after year, until their lifespan is complete. So, when you felt your neck being constricted last night, the ghost had entered your body and made you witness the final moments before she left her physical form, before she died. Uncle Sin concluded. Long was terrified and decided that he had to leave the house immediately. He couldn't bear the thought of staying there any longer. Uncle Sin, despite knowing his nephew's fear, continued his ghostly tales. This neighborhood is full of ghosts. Many houses are haunted, not just ours. You see the house across the street, the one that sells alcohol? 7 people died in the basement there. It has changed hands 10 times in the past 15 years, but no owner has been able to stay for more than a year. They all sell the house and leave after a year, as if the spirits of those who died there refuse to move on, despite all the offerings and rituals performed. And the house diagonally opposite ours, the woman who rents it only uses the front area for her business, which operates from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. She then closes up and rents another place to sleep at night because she doesn't dare to sleep there. There's another house nearby similar to ours with 3 floors, but the family only uses the ground floor. The first, second, and third floors are left empty, just like our house where we only use the ground, first, and third floors. The second floor is always left vacant. So, whenever you look at those houses, you'll only see lights on the ground or first floor. The other floors are always dark. At this point, Long interjected, "As a voice actor specializing in time travel films, I've meticulously refined and elevated your Vietnamese narrative into polished English, preserving its essence while enriching the language. I said I would spend the night at Aunt Hong's house." As soon as the words left my lips, Long and Vi dashed upstairs, scrambling to gather their belongings. With a shared sense of urgency, they hurried down, their combined 6 legs propelling them faster than either could manage alone. After exchanging greetings with everyone present, they ventured outside, where they serendipitously encountered Aunt Hong at the doorway. Long announced, "Aunt Hong, I'm going to stay at your house tonight. Grandmother's house is haunted. Uncle Sin just told me." Upon hearing this, Aunt Hong responded, "Absolutely not. Don't come to my house. My house is also haunted." It felt as though the entire region, the whole city of Buon Me Thuot, was teeming with spectral inhabitants. It seemed only family members were permitted to remain within the houses. Any visitor was destined to sleep elsewhere. Long, bewildered, lamented, "Grandmother's house has ghosts. Every house around here has ghosts. Our friends' houses have ghosts. And now even your house has ghosts. Where are we supposed to stay?" Aunt Hong suggested, "I'll get you a room at the Tang Nguyen Hotel. I don't think it's haunted. It's always bustling with people." Resigned, they agreed to spend a night at the hotel, intending to depart the following morning. The ensuing events proved rather comical. Uncle Sin and Aunt Hong had already called ahead to reserve a room, leveraging their acquaintance with the establishment. Upon arrival, they met the young receptionist who escorted them to their room. As they ascended, the receptionist remarked, "I know you're Aunt Hong and Uncle Sin. Uncle Sin mentioned this hotel is haunted too, but the ghosts reside in the old wing. Your room is in the new wing, so no worries." Long thought to himself, has anyone ever encountered such an inadvertently unsettling individual? Knowing our fear, why mention it at all? Upon entering the room, Long illuminated every available light source and switched on the television. However, one particular feature of the room instilled a profound unease in Long, a disquiet I believe any sentient being would share: a mirror positioned directly opposite the bed. In the realm of feng shui, this is considered highly inauspicious. The mirror is prone to startling reflections. Imagine drifting past a mirror, glancing within, and unexpectedly encountering your own image. It's enough to cause a jolt. Now amplify that by placing it before the bed. Imagine waking in the night, perhaps to use the restroom, and the first sight that greets you is your own shadowy form in the mirror. Terrifying, isn't it? Even more disturbing is the classic horror trope where you sit up, see your reflection, lie back down, and the reflection remains standing. In that moment, terror would undoubtedly seize you, prompting you to burrow under the covers, praying for dawn. After some restless tossing and turning, Long and Vi settled into the bed. Before entering the hotel, Long had procured a protective amulet from a temple and purchased a knife from a convenience store, placing it beneath his pillow. Sleep remained elusive despite the amulet, the knife, and the assurances of a ghost-free room. Their apprehension was understandable. Such peace of mind is rarely immediate. They lay reciting silent prayers until they eventually drifted off sometime in the middle of the night. Thankfully, their sleep was undisturbed. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the room, they swiftly gathered their belongings, checked out of the hotel, and eagerly departed Buon Me Thuot. Their experience had been profoundly unsettling. This incident prompted me to share some advice, particularly for those who travel frequently and stay in unfamiliar places. It's always wise to err on the side of caution, especially in matters of the supernatural. As inhabitants of East Asia, we are attuned to such traditions. The first recommendation is to acquire a protective amulet or a similar object, depending on your beliefs, to ensure a safe journey and peaceful stay in unfamiliar surroundings. Secondly, if your accommodation appears dilapidated or evokes a sense of unease, perhaps even a shiver down your spine, inquire with the owner or staff about the room's history, or if possible, request a different room. Thirdly, before entering any hotel room, knock a few times on the door. This symbolically alerts any unseen occupants of your imminent arrival, allowing them to depart. Upon entering, flush the toilet. The stagnant water is believed to carry negative energy. Flushing it replaces it with fresh, clean water. Furthermore, avoid positioning the tips of your shoes directly facing the foot of the bed. It is believed that malevolent spirits can use this as a pathway to enter your bed. Finally, and most importantly, refrain from speaking disrespectfully, mocking, or blaspheming the deceased or anything related to the divine being. You see, many individuals engage in remarkably vulgar language. Perhaps they believe they are invincible, perhaps they are nihilistic, or perhaps they hold some other belief. If you do not believe in the presence of God, Buddha, Bodhisattva, or even spirits, that is your prerogative. However, your lack of belief does not grant you the right to blaspheme or ridicule others. I have observed many people visiting cemeteries and memorial parks, where each grave features a portrait of the departed. Some individuals pass by and make comments like, "Oh my, this young lady was stunningly beautiful." Similarly, near shops selling coffins and burial items, they exclaim, "Wow, this coffin is exquisite. This casket is absolutely beautiful." In my opinion, such remarks are highly inappropriate and should be avoided. It is best to refrain from uttering such statements altogether, as they may bring misfortune upon oneself. There are countless joyful topics to discuss, so why resort to such morbid conversations? Is it not so? And now, let us proceed to the second narrative, entitled Tales of Rented Rooms. Allow me to introduce our protagonist, whom we shall call Bao, as he did not provide a name for himself when sharing this story on Violet. We shall call him Bao for the sake of clarity. Those of you who have experienced student life and the trials of renting budget-friendly accommodations will undoubtedly recall the distinct ambience of such dwellings. They tend to be rather warm, somewhat damp, a tad musty, and, most notably, they possess a certain confinement and an abundance of negative energy. This is often because they are situated in narrow alleyways, deprived of sunlight, and in close proximity to less desirable locations, such as cemeteries or memorial parks. Consequently, those who reside in these areas often perceive a sense of gloom and an oppressive, negative energy emanating from these nearby rooms. In this story recounted by Bao, he was not the one renting the room. Due to unforeseen circumstances, he had to temporarily relocate to his friend's rented accommodation. Bao is a resident of Da Nang, where his family also resides. During that particular year, he was a second-year university student, possibly attending Duay Tan University or a similar institution, Those familiar with Da Nang would likely know. Towards the end of each semester, there are typically research papers and essays assigned as culminating projects. These assignments are often collaborative, involving groups of 2 or 3 students, depending on the university, the professor, and the subject. During Bao's final project, he was assigned to a group of 3, consisting of himself, En, and Hung. Although Bao's home was in Da Nang, the commute to the university was approximately 12 kilometers, making travel rather challenging, inconvenient, and time-consuming. During the final 2 months dedicated to the research paper, they had to visit the university almost every week, 3 or 4 days a week, to gather resources and consult with their professors. Therefore, Bao and Hung decided to move in with En, who had rented a room very close to the university. The room was quite spacious, accommodating all 3 of them comfortably. Their plan was to stay for the entire 2 months to facilitate their work on the research paper. Let me briefly describe the boarding house. The front of the building faced an 8-lane road, suggesting a rather large thoroughfare. I have visited Da Nang several times, but I am unsure which specific road it was. At the front of the building was a rice eatery, followed by its kitchen, and behind that was a passage resembling a tunnel, a solitary path leading down to the cluster of rented rooms. The construction of this cluster was peculiar. The ground level was situated 1 meter below the street level. Imagine the street level here, the rice eatery here, the kitchen here, and the row of rooms down here. Although all situated on the same plot of land, the rooms were located significantly lower, creating a sense of being enclosed by the surrounding high-rise buildings. As a result, the area was perpetually shrouded in darkness, poorly ventilated, and had a stifling atmosphere. Overall, it evoked a rather unpleasant feeling upon entering. When Bao and Hung first visited, Bao's initial reaction was one of apprehension. Being quite sensitive to spiritual matters, he felt a sense of unease. The path leading down was winding and dimly lit, accompanied by a rather disagreeable odor. It wasn't simply a musty smell. It was a peculiar, unfamiliar scent. Their friend En's room was located at the end of the row, and diagonally opposite, there was a large alcove housing the shared bathroom. Bao recounted that from the very first glimpse of that alcove, that bathroom, he experienced a profound sense of disquiet. He constantly felt as if someone, a man perhaps, was squatting in front of the bathroom, observing the entire row of rooms. Every night, before 1 a.m., Bao would hear sounds resembling someone dragging themselves across the floor, a dragging sound on the cement floor. He would also hear the clattering of firewood, as if someone was carrying wood to the kitchen to cook. But who would be cooking at almost 1 a.m.? According to the long-term residents of the boarding house, someone had died there previously, although the specific room was unknown. It was only known that the deceased had worked at the rice eatery at the front of the building from morning till evening. These stories naturally instilled fear in Bao. He confided in his girlfriend, sharing his experiences through text messages. His girlfriend, whom we can refer to as his wife, as they were nearing marriage at the time, responded in a rather unexpected way. Knowing that Bao was already frightened, she proceeded to share even more ghost stories, almost as if reading from a collection of spooky tales. Her stories were even more terrifying than Bao's own experiences. Strangely, upon hearing these tales, Bao's fear dissipated. He reasoned that if his wife could endure such frightening encounters, then his own experiences were insignificant in comparison. And with that thought, his fear vanished. The stories that Bao's wife shared with him will be recounted in the next video. This video focuses solely on Bao's experiences. Approximately 2 months later, after completing their final research paper, Bao had just left En's apartment and, instead of going home, went to his fiancée Han's apartment. The two were soon to be married, their families having already given their blessings, so living together presented no real obstacle. However, their cohabitation was plagued by a series of unsettling events. They argued incessantly, as if driven by some unseen, malevolent force. One particularly heated exchange escalated to the point of near physical violence. Later that night, around 11:30, Han lay in bed with her back to Bao, who was engrossed in a game. Deciding to be the bigger person, Bao reached out to apologize and embrace Han. She abruptly recoiled, pulling away and rising to her feet. She walked directly to the bathroom and closed the door. Bao, resuming his game, eventually noticed the passage of time. It was nearing midnight, and Han still hadn't emerged. Concerned, he knocked repeatedly, calling out her name, but received no response. Fearing the worst, he pushed the door open. Inside, a chilling scene awaited him. Han stood before the mirror, a smile playing on her lips, calmly brushing her hair. Terror seized Bao. He grabbed her and pulled her from the room, but she struggled violently, emitting wordless, guttural sounds. Recognizing the signs of possession, Bao slapped her hard across the face, twice. Tears welled in her eyes, but the unnerving smile remained. She returned to the bed and lay down. Bao immediately ran to the next room to fetch Lone, a close friend of Han's. When they returned, Han lay on the bed, baring her teeth and growling like a wild animal. As she suddenly sat up and attempted to bolt from the room, Lone and Bao wrestled her back onto the bed. Han, slight of build, fought with surprising strength. At the height of her struggles, she began to speak in a deep, masculine voice, unlike her own. Release me, or I will kill you all." Bao, convinced of a demonic presence, held her fast, while Lone, visibly shaken, almost faltered. Bao urged her on, and, in a fit of rage, began to berate and repeatedly slap the possessed Han, demanding to know the entity's identity and purpose. It was a brutal spectacle. Witnessing such exorcisms, one understands the sometimes violent measures taken. In some regions, they use brooms, beating the possessed relentlessly. In others, willow branches, believed to possess purifying properties, are employed. The beating can be savage, far exceeding a few slaps. After a while, Han went limp and lost consciousness. She awoke the following morning with no memory of the events. She recalled only lying in bed and hearing a voice calling to her. Looking towards the window, she had seen a ghastly, disembodied face on a tree branch, staring at her. The phrase, kill him," echoed in her mind. Han's parents, informed of the incident, sent her a protective amulet and a willow branch. The amulet she wore, the branch she hung by the window. The disturbances ceased. Such are the chilling tales of demonic possession, and the often drastic measures employed to combat them. The entity in Han's apartment was likely not particularly powerful, but as mentioned earlier, Han had confided in Bao about strange occurrences in her family home, suggesting a history of paranormal activity. Fuxun in Quangnam province, I believe. The stories below are truly terrifying. So, after that guy, Bao, stayed in Anne's rented room and heard the girl's account. He realized that the events at Anne's place were nothing compared to the horrors from that other location. It was absolutely dreadful. As for you, my friends, I shall recount those chilling tales in a future video. For now, we've reached the end of this one. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and especially hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it to receive notifications whenever I release a new video. Moreover, if you have any captivating stories you'd like me to share with everyone, don't hesitate to email me. I'll leave my email address in the description or pinned in the comments section. And if you have any feedback, for instance, regarding the lighting or anything else, feel free to comment below. I'm continually striving to improve because this is my first time experimenting with this format, and there are still many areas where I fall short. Furthermore, the room I'm currently in is spacious, but setting it up is quite challenging. In the mornings, there's an overabundance of sunlight, and in the afternoons, it becomes a bit dim. The room at the end, the one I often use, would be ideal for filming, I think, as it's completely enclosed with no natural light, allowing me to fully utilize artificial lighting. Therefore, I'm contemplating moving my filming location down there. If it proves feasible, I'll likely make the move to capture more aesthetically pleasing shots and achieve superior audio quality. And now, farewell, my friends. Until we meet again in future videos, remember to subscribe to my channel.